There are places that do not simply preserve history. They seem to have written some of humanity's earliest chapters. Syria is one of those places. Across its mountains, deserts, coastlines, and ancient cities, the memory of language, writing, trade, and faith has never fully disappeared. In Loula, families still pray in Aramaic, an ancient language connected to the world of Jesus. Off the coast of Tartus, Arwad rises from the Mediterranean like a fragment of Phoenician memory, where sailors, merchants, and sea routes once helped connect civilizations. And in the heart of Damascus, mosques, churches, markets, and caravanserais continue to breathe with everyday life. Syria is more than a country marked by the wounds of war. It is a land where the ancient code of civilization still echoes through stone, voices, incense, and the people who refuse to let memory die. What makes Palmyra so hard to forget is the way a city rose from the Syrian desert. Not as a mirage, but as a powerful crossroads where the Mediterranean, Mesopotamia, Arabia, and Persia once met through desert roads and caravan trade. Caravans carried silk, spices, textiles, incense, metals, and ideas through its streets, turning this remote oasis into a wealthy urban center whose influence reached far beyond the desert around it. In the 3rd century, Queen Zenobia gave Palmyra its most dramatic human face, transforming the city into a brief regional power that challenged Rome before defeat turned her story into one of authority, ambition, and resistance. You feel the scale most clearly along the Great Colonnade, stretching about 3,600 feet through the ancient city, where limestone columns still stand like a stone procession marching across the open desert. Around that axis, temples, agora spaces, theater remains, funerary monuments, tower tombs, and urban quarters once formed a breathtaking architectural language shaped by Greco-Roman planning, local Syrian traditions, Mesopotamian influence, and Persian influence. Yet Palmyra survived for centuries not by beauty alone, but through durable stone, deep foundations, massive wall systems, protective sand, and careful excavation that allowed parts of the city to emerge from burial rather than vanish completely. But the most devastating damage came in modern times, when the Syrian war reached this ancient landscape and Islamic State militants destroyed or severely damaged the Temple of Bel, the Temple of Baal Shaman, and the Arch of Triumph in 2015. Even after that loss, Palmyra still asks visitors to slow down, walk between surviving columns, study inscriptions, enter the theater area, and understand Syria not as a single story of ruin, but as a meeting point of empire, religion, trade, and cultural exchange. In the end, Palmyra is not merely a dead city in the desert. It is a wounded monument to human ambition, proving that civilizations may fall, but the roads they carved into history can keep echoing long after their empires disappear. If Syria has a living memory, it may be Damascus' old city, where narrow lanes, markets, mosques, churches, schools, palaces, and caravan buildings still compress thousands of years into a walkable human maze. Founded in the 3rd millennium BC, Damascus grew beside the Barada River and the Ghouta Oasis, then moved through Aramaean, Roman, Byzantine, Islamic, Ottoman, and modern periods without losing its role as a capital of continuity. Under the Umayyads, the city became the heart of a vast caliphate, linking Syria with the wider Levant, North Africa, Iraq, and Arabia through law, scholarship, worship, administration, and trade. At the religious center of the old city stands the Umayyad Mosque, commissioned in the early 8th century by Caliph Al-Walid, where marble courtyards, arcades, mosaics, gates, and minarets still organize the rhythm of prayer. What makes this mosque extraordinary is not only its architectural power, but the tradition that it houses the tomb of John the Baptist, a saint honored in both Christianity and Islam. Nearby, the Sayyida Ruqayya Shrine draws pilgrims into a more intimate current of grief and devotion, while shops, lodging, and family services show how sacred memory still supports everyday urban life. Step into Al-Azm Palace, built in the 18th century by Ottoman governor As'ad Pasha al-Azm, and Damascus suddenly turns inward through courtyards, fountains, stone floors, painted wooden ceilings, and carefully separated public and private spaces. Its black and white oblong stonework and cooling courtyard fountains reveal a city that understood beauty as climate, comfort, and status, not decoration alone. Today, Damascus' old city remains powerful because it is not a frozen museum, but a breathing crossroads where faith, trade, hospitality, and hidden architecture continue to prove that some cities do not merely survive history, they carry it. Imagine a marketplace so vast it once stretched for nearly 8 miles beneath stone vaults, where the scent of cumin, soap, wool, and smoke carried the memory of empires through the heart of Aleppo. Beside the towering citadel, Souk al-Madina was never just a place to buy and sell. It was a hidden city under arches, where Mamluk, Ottoman, and modern life folded into one immense corridor of trade. What makes it extraordinary is not only its scale, but the way Aleppo's caravan routes turned these narrow lanes into a living bridge between east and west, where silk, cotton, wool, spices, dyes, and coffee passed through countless hands. Step deeper, and the market begins to feel almost alive, as folded fabrics glow in shopfront shadows. Merchants measure cloth with quick, practiced fingers, and sacks of sumac, cardamom, pepper, and dried lemon breathe sharp fragrance into the warm air. Yet the beauty here carries a wound, because war and fire tore through this ancient network like a blade through old parchment, reopening some corridors while leaving others scarred, silent, and heavy with the cost of Syria's long conflict. Evening brings another rhythm, as lamps soften the restored arches. Families drift past cafes and narrow storefronts, and tea sellers move between customers like quiet messengers of normal life, returning one cup at a time. Even Aleppo's flavor gathers in this maze, from muhammara's smoky richness to chilled tamarind juice, whose sweet sourness cuts through the heat after a long walk through stone alleys and crowded memories. Today, as more restored shops slowly reopen, Souk al-Madina feels less like a ruin being repaired than a wounded giant learning to breathe again. One doorway, one measured fabric, and one human voice at a time. High west of Homs, on the route between inland Syria and the Mediterranean coast, Crac des Chevaliers rises almost like a limestone war machine, built not to welcome the world, but to control who could pass beneath it. First held in the 11th century by Kurdish troops, then transformed in the 12th century by the Knights Hospitaller, the fortress became one of the most formidable Crusader strongholds in the Levant. Its power came from layered defense, where outer walls, inner walls, towers, vaulted chambers, galleries, ramps, arrow slits, and steep approaches worked together like a trap designed in stone. What made its concentric plan so terrifying was the simple logic of exhaustion. Attackers had to break one defensive line only to discover another waiting above them, harder to reach and even harder to breach. In 1190, after major victories across the region, Saladin came near the castle but avoided a full assault, a decision that quietly reveals how dangerous this fortress appeared even to one of the medieval world's greatest commanders. The real turning point came in 1271, when Sultan Baybars arrived with siege engines and a clear strategy, captured Crac des Chevaliers, yet chose to preserve and adapt much of the castle for Mamluk rule rather than erase it. Centuries later, the Syrian war left modern scars on its medieval walls, damaging parts of the structure, including the chapel area, before government forces retook the site in 2014 after battles around Al-Husn. Today, as part of a UNESCO World Heritage Property still listed as in danger, Crac des Chevaliers is being approached with careful stabilization rather than heavy reconstruction, because preserving its wounded fabric matters more than making it look untouched. In the end, this castle is more than a spectacular fortress on a hill. It is a record of fear turned into architecture, and a reminder that Syria's recovery may begin not by erasing scars, but by protecting what survived them. Unlike modern machines that hide their power behind steel and silence, the Norayas of Hama rise beside the Orontes River like colossal wooden clocks, turning slowly in the open air while measuring time with water, timber, and sound. In this ancient Syrian city, these massive wheels were built to lift river water into elevated aqueducts, feeding homes, gardens, mosques, and public fountains long before electricity made such work invisible. Some of the largest wheels reach about 66 feet in diameter, nearly the height of a 6-story building. Yet their movement depends on something astonishingly simple: the current of the Orontes pushing wooden paddles again and again. What makes them truly mesmerizing is not only their size, but their sound. A deep rhythmic creak that rolls across the riverbank like an old voice refusing to disappear. Each turn lifts water upward through compartments around the rim, then releases it into stone channels, proving that medieval engineering could transform a flowing river into a quiet engine of urban life. Yet there is a strange paradox here, because most norias no longer serve their original water-supplying purpose, while their presence has become even more powerful as a symbol of Hama's identity. Visitors gather along the river not simply to watch wood rotate, but to hear a city remember itself through the groan of axles, the splash of water, and the patient rhythm of survival. Today, local caretakers and heritage groups work to repair structures, replace aging wood, monitor river conditions, and protect the surrounding banks, because every preserved wheel carries more than engineering knowledge. In a country too often remembered through war, the Norayas of Hama offer a different image of Syria. Not ruins frozen in grief, but giant wooden circles still moving, as if the city's oldest heartbeat has never stopped. What makes Khan Assad Pasha truly unforgettable is not simply its age, but the way it rises inside old Damascus like a stone memory of the Silk Road, where commerce once arrived with dust, animals, spices, and distant languages. Built in the 18th century under Ottoman rule, this immense caravanserai covers about 27,000 square feet, transforming hospitality, storage, trade, and protection into one powerful architectural machine hidden within Al-Buzuraya souk. Step through its monumental doorway, and the noise of the market suddenly falls behind you, replaced by a vast courtyard where stone piers, upper galleries, storerooms, and former stable areas still suggest the rhythm of long-distance caravans. Above the courtyard, domes gather and filter the light, while small windows pull brightness down onto stone and marble, as if the building were carefully turning the harsh Syrian sun into silence. Yet this Khan was never just beautiful, because every arch and chamber once served a practical purpose, sheltering merchants, animals, and goods, when Damascus stood as one of the great crossroads of the world. Just beyond this commercial monument, Damascus keeps another ancient art alive at Al-Nafura Cafe, where the Hakawati storyteller revives evenings that existed before radio and television, performing long tales with a book, a staff, and a listening crowd. The city's memory also lives through taste, in kibbeh made from finely ground meat, bulgur wheat, onions, warm spices, and toasted nuts, followed slowly by strong Syrian coffee scented with cardamom. Today, Khan Assad Pasha feels less like an abandoned inn than a magnificent pause in the old city, where architecture, storytelling, hospitality, and flavor still gather under stone domes, proving that Damascus remembers not only through monuments, but through rituals people continue to repeat. What if a Roman theater built for applause became a fortress built for survival? In Bosra, that transformation still stands in black basalt, rising from southern Syria like a stage later wrapped in walls. Standing on caravan routes that once linked Arabia, Damascus, and the wider Levant, Bosra grew from earlier Nabatean roots before Rome annexed the region in the 2nd century and made it the capital of Arabia province. Across the city, streets, baths, churches, mosques, gates, and houses still reveal a place where trade, administration, religion, and public life were pressed into the same dark stone. Its greatest monument is the 2nd-century Roman theater, more than 330 feet across and able to hold more than 15,000 spectators, a crowd large enough to make the black stone tremble with voices. What makes this theater unforgettable is not only its remarkable preservation, but its later transformation, when Ayyubid fortifications wrapped the Roman stage in defensive walls and turned entertainment into a structure of survival. Ancient audiences once gathered here for spectacle, ceremony, and civic identity. Yet centuries later, the same cavea, orchestra, galleries, and entrances became part of a fortified shell watching over the city. Bosra's deeper power comes from its layers, where Nabatean settlement, Roman urban order, Byzantine Christianity, and Islamic architecture remain embedded within the same urban ground, rather than replacing one another. Al-Omari Mosque and early Christian remains extend the story beyond the theater, proving that Bosra was never only a Roman city, but a crossroads where faiths, empires, and daily life kept reshaping the same ground. Today, as a UNESCO World Heritage Site listed since 1980 and still considered endangered by conflict impacts, Bosra endures through basalt, reuse, and careful repair. In the end, its black stones hold more than architecture. They hold the echo of crowds, guards, pilgrims, and survivors, all gathered inside a city that turned performance, prayer, and defense into one unforgettable memory. Off the coast of Tartus, Arwad Island appears on the Mediterranean like a stone ship anchored only 2 miles from shore, small enough to cross on foot, yet heavy with thousands of years of human memory. Known in antiquity as Arados, this tiny island remains Syria's only inhabited island, and one of the eastern Mediterranean's ancient maritime city-states, where Phoenician settlers turned limited ground into harbors, walls, houses, workshops, and trade. What makes Arwad remarkable is the paradox of its scale, because a place no larger than a crowded harbor district once connected ships, merchants, and political power across the sea lanes of the Levant. Its massive stone walls remain the island's most forceful image, built from enormous blocks fitted tightly together as if the entire shoreline had been armored against waves, weather, and the slow erosion of time. Inside that narrow ring of stone, homes, lanes, workspaces, and harbor edges press close together, creating a dense island settlement where history does not sit behind glass, but leans over balconies and spills into the alleys. Today, Arwad is still a living fishing town, where men repair nets before dawn, boats leave with the first pale light, and the evening return spreads orange reflections across the water like fire broken into waves. Around the island, the sea carries another hidden story, with fish, algae, shellfish, plankton, and sponges forming a fragile Mediterranean ecosystem that depends on cleaner water and more responsible fishing to survive. To understand Arwad, you arrive by boat and continue on foot, passing the harbor, fish markets, fortress remains, and tight lanes where Phoenician heritage, crusader memory, and daily labor still occupy the same small ground. In the end, Arwad is not simply an island off Syria's coast, but a compact world of salt, stone, trade, and survival, proving that some places can be physically tiny and historically immense. Before Syria opens into deserts and fallen empires, Loula asks you to listen first, because this mountain village northeast of Damascus carries one of the rare ancient sounds still spoken in the Middle East. Built into the pale cliffs of the Kalamun Mountains, about 35 miles from the capital and more than 4,900 feet above sea level, Loula feels less like a village placed on rock than one carved from it. Its narrow lanes, stone houses, churches, and monasteries hold a Christian life that became central in late antiquity, especially around the monastery of Saints Sergius and Bacchus and the monastery of St. Thecla. Yet the deepest treasure here is not only sacred architecture, but Western Neo-Aramaic, a living descendant of ancient Aramaic, the language most scholars associate with the everyday speech of Jesus. In Loula, history does not remain locked inside manuscripts, because it moves through family conversations, church teaching, repeated prayers, and Aramaic chants carried by the unaccompanied human voice. During these rituals, clergy or trained singers lead the chant, while the community answers in shared lines, turning pronunciation into memory and prayer into a living classroom for younger generations. For linguists, this fragile sound world helps preserve clues to the ancient speech of the Levant, while for believers, it links scripture, sacred places, national identity, and the intimate rhythm of worship. But Loula also carries scars, because the Syrian war damaged homes, churches, icons, and community spaces, forcing residents, clergy, and heritage workers to repair not only buildings, but the continuity of daily faith and language. Today, pilgrims still light candles near cliffside shrines, paths reopen between caves and monasteries, and recordings of songs and prayers help protect a language that history nearly pushed to the edge of silence. Loula feels precious because it proves that heritage is not always a stone column or broken temple. Sometimes it is a voice in a narrow lane, still speaking after 2,000 years. The road to Sayidnaya climbs north of Damascus into the mountains, where the plain grows quieter behind you, and a white monastery rises from the rock like a fortress built for prayer. Linked by tradition to the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, who is said to have ordered its construction, Sayidnaya became one of Syria's great Marian pilgrimage centers, drawing believers for centuries from the Levant and the wider Arab world. What makes this place so powerful is the way sacred architecture and defensive strength merge, with thick stone walls, narrow passages, fortified outer layers, chapels, courtyards, stairways, and enclosed chambers gathered tightly on a rocky height. Inside the main church, icons, altars, hanging lamps, carved surfaces, and candlelight create a space where devotion feels less like decoration than something still alive in the stone. The most distinctive experience here is the divine liturgy, following the rhythm of Eastern Christian worship, as clergy begin with incense, formal chants, scripture readings, hymns, and Eucharistic ritual, while the congregation stands, listens, and answers in repeated lines. At the center of this ritual world is the icon of the Virgin Mary, approached by pilgrims who bring offerings, touch sacred surfaces, light candles, and pray with a silence shaped by generations. In the end, Sayidnaya feels less like a destination you visit than a sacred passage you enter, where stone, incense, candles, and human voices keep teaching the same lesson. Faith survives by being practiced again and again. Across the plains northwest of Hama, Apamea opens into one of Syria's most striking ancient cityscapes, where fallen columns and stone roads still trace the shape of a once powerful Roman city. Developed in the early 3rd century BC by Seleucus Nicator, a Macedonian general from the world of Alexander the Great, the city was named for his wife, Apama, and began as a strategic Seleucid military base. Its position gave Apamea control over routes linking inland Syria, Antioch, and the Mediterranean coast, turning this high plain into a corridor where soldiers, merchants, officials, and ideas once moved under imperial control. What makes Apamea breathtaking is its Great Colonnade, a north-south avenue nearly 1.2 miles long, where stone columns once framed the city's main axis like a monumental spine built for movement, ceremony, and power. Some columns rise with plain shafts, while others twist with spiral fluting, creating a rare visual rhythm, as if the avenue itself were shifting between bands of shadow and light. Beneath that beauty, the city reveals the intelligence of Roman urban planning, with stone bases, limestone paving, drainage channels, and portico floors designed to support everyday movement, as well as public ceremony. Apamea matters because it preserves one of the clearest Roman urban axes in Syria, while also showing how Hellenistic foundations, Roman rebuilding, and Byzantine adaptation could occupy the same city without erasing one another. Today, its future depends less on dramatic reconstruction than on documentation, monitoring, artifact protection, emergency assessment, and careful restoration when conditions allow, because these stones are not silent ruins. They are the last language of a city that once spoke in columns. The mystery of Ain Dara begins not with a statue, but with footprints carved into stone, each nearly 3 feet long, as if an enormous presence once crossed the threshold into sacred space. Rising about 82 feet above the Afrin Valley in northwestern Syria, this Iron Age temple site looked down over a lower town below, placing its raised platform between ordinary human life and an older, more mysterious world of belief. Across its basalt blocks and limestone foundations, carved lions, sphinx figures, stairways, and heavy stone remains still suggest a place designed not for comfort, but for awe, ceremony, and ritual movement. What makes Ain Dara truly unforgettable is the path of those giant footprints, cut directly into hard basalt and carefully finished by ancient tools, marking a ceremonial approach that scholars often interpret as the symbolic movement of a deity entering the temple. Their meaning remains debated, yet that uncertainty only deepens the power of the site, because visitors are left standing where ancient worshippers may once have imagined divine feet passing toward the inner sanctuary. The temple also matters because it preserves a religious layer of northern Syria before later classical and Islamic periods, and its porch, hall, and inner sanctuary have often been compared with descriptions of Solomon's temple. In 2018, modern conflict reportedly damaged Ain Dara, striking a monument that had survived for roughly 3,000 years before contemporary violence tore through its stones. Today, the broken basalt feels like a warning left in the landscape itself, reminding us that even places built for the divine can remain vulnerable to human conflict, while the giant footprints endure as silent evidence of a world that once imagined the sacred walking close to earth.